Someone at school started shipping me with my sworn enemy, the campus beauty queen. I was absolutely disgusted. I told everyone that even if every woman on earth died out, I would never fall for Zhang Weishui. Zhang Weishui wasn't about to back down either. She declared, "I'd rather become a nun than marry Ji Yunan Chao." After that, Zhang Weishui stormed off with the school's golden boy. But a car accident left Zhang Weishui's spine severely damaged. The doctors said she might never walk again. The golden boy didn't even set foot in her hospital room. Just sent a breakup text. Then vanished without a trace. The once adored Miss Zhang became impulsive, depressed, even suicidal. Zhang Weishui's parents cried every day, helpless and lost. I was the one who stepped up. I crouched in front of her wheelchair and said softly, "Zhang Weishui, everything's going to be okay. For the next 3 years, I'll be right here with you." I stayed by her side through the entire recovery process, sleeping only 2 hours a night, terrified she'd spiral in the darkness. When she lost control and smashed her chair into her own legs, I didn't hesitate. I threw myself in front of her, taking the full force of the blow. But the day she finally stood on her own 2 feet again, I found myself standing outside her private room, overhearing her conversation with friends. "Weishui, Ji Yunan Chao has been nothing but perfect to you. These past 3 years, without him, there's no way you'd have recovered this well." A moment later, I heard someone ask, "So when are you planning to marry him?" After a long silence, Zhang Weishui's voice drifted out, flat and distant. "I see him as a brother." The girls' voices suddenly shot up. "He's been by your side for 3 whole years. And you only see him as a brother? Weishui, don't tell me you're still hung up on Guizhan? That year when you had your accident, he didn't say a word, just ran. Disappeared. Now that you're better, he suddenly comes crawling back. You could fall for anyone in the world, but not him." Zhang Weishui said nothing. I used to dream that she might love me back. But by now, how could I not understand what she really felt? She was healed now. And me, the stand-in brother, it was time for me to exit the stage. I took a deep breath, pushed open the door. The laughter and chatter inside stopped dead. Everyone turned to look at me. The girls stared with shame written all over their faces. One of them ventured, "Ji Yunan Chao, how long have you been standing there?" I smiled. "Just got here." Then, pretending I hadn't heard a thing, I handed Zhang Weishui a gift. "Congratulations on your recovery." Zhang Weishui was about to take it when the door burst open again. Guizhan stood in the doorway, eyes red-rimmed. "Nan Chao, I heard you recovered. I came to congratulate you." The air in the room turned to ice. Zhang Weishui's friends glared daggers at him. "What are you doing here? That year when Weishui had her accident, you ran faster than anyone. And now you have the nerve to come back?" Guizhan flushed crimson, his eyes welling up. He shoved a gift at Zhang Weishui and turned to leave. But suddenly, Zhang Weishui grabbed his wrist. "You're already here. Stay." Everyone froze. All eyes turned to me. I stood there, my smile unchanged. The rest of the party was suffocating. The atmosphere thick and strange. Zhang Weishui's friends deliberately iced out Guizhan, constantly teasing me and Zhang Weishui instead. "Ji Yunan Chao, when Weishui was recovering, didn't you massage her every single day?" "That's right, your technique was professional grade. Weishui would only listen to you. Anyone else so much as touched her and she'd snap." I kept my head down, pretending not to notice the pure hatred in Guizhan's stare. And though Zhang Weishui appeared indifferent on the surface, I could feel it. Her entire attention was focused on Guizhan. Midway through, someone suggested a game. Guizhan lost first. His punishment: get the phone number of someone of the opposite sex. He reflexively glanced at Zhang Weishui. But Zhang Weishui just scrolled through her phone, pretending not to see. He walked over to the table next to ours. In seconds, a group of heavily made-up women swarmed him. One of them, drunk, grabbed his wrist and slurred, "Handsome, you can add me on Instagram. But first you gotta let us get a little closer, don't you think?" Zhang Weishui's head snapped up. The next second, she lunged forward and slapped the woman hard across the face. "Are you looking to die?" Chaos erupted instantly. I was terrified her barely recovered body would suffer. So I rushed to stop her. "Wai Shui, don't," I couldn't finish. Zhang Wai Shui shoved me away with the back of her hand. "Get out of my way." Crash. Caught off guard, my foot slipped. I tumbled down the stairs. The back of my head slammed hard into the floor. Everything went black. Warm blood trickled down from my temple. I struggled to push myself up, only to see Zhang Wai Shui pulling Gui Zhan by the hand, rushing away together. Her legs were perfect. They were my creation. Everyone said Zhang Wai Shui's ability to walk again was a miracle. But only I knew there was no miracle. It was just me, pouring everything I had into pulling her back from the abyss, inch by agonizing inch. And now that she'd climbed out, she didn't need me anymore. Right then, my phone suddenly rang. I fumbled to pull it out, trembling. The 3 words, "Mrs. Zhang," on the screen made my eyes sting. I knew exactly what this call meant. Sure enough, the moment I answered, Mrs. Yang's gentle voice came through. "Gu Nan Chao. Wai Shui is now the CEO of a publicly traded corporation. Her husband can't be someone with no background or status. Someone who can't help her in any way. Thank you for your unwavering care these past 3 years. But you need to understand. If the Zhang family hadn't sponsored you back then, you wouldn't have even been able to afford college. Consider that debt repaid in full now. Understood?" There was a pause on the other end, as if she were waiting for me to shout and demand answers. Or beg pathetically. But when I spoke, my voice was terrifyingly calm. "I'll leave. I'll never appear in front of your daughter again." I hung up and went straight to the hospital. The cut on my forehead took 3 stitches. The doctor told me to keep it dry. After they patched me up, I walked out, but near the hospital entrance, I spotted Zhang Wai Shui's Maybach. The window rolled down. Gui Zhan was crying. "Wai Shui, I don't expect you to forgive me. But I had my reasons for leaving. My parents didn't approve of us being together. They forced me to go abroad. They even confiscated my phone. It's not that I didn't want to find you." Finally, Zhang Wai Shui spoke. "Then why did you come back now?" Gui Zhan hung his head. "Because I couldn't forget you. I know you have Gu Nan Chao now. I'm not asking for anything else. Just please don't push me away. Let me stay nearby, even if it's just to watch you from a distance." I stood in the shadows, watching Zhang Wai Shui stay silent for a long time. Finally, she reached out and wiped away Gui Zhan's tears. "I don't blame you." Then she said, "As for Gu Nan Chao, I only see him as a brother. It's not what you think." Gui Zhan's eyes lit up. "Really?" Zhang Wai Shui nodded. Gui Zhan wept with joy, pulling her into his arms. I let out a bitter laugh, turned around, and walked away, straight to the immigration office. The clerk handed me a form. "Your visa will be ready in 2 weeks." Once the paperwork was done, I returned to Zhang Wai Shui's villa. For the past 3 years, to make it easier to care for her, I'd lived here. While packing my things, I found a photo buried at the bottom of a drawer. It was taken the day Zhang Wai Shui successfully recovered. One of the rare times she smiled at the camera. And there I was, standing beside her, grinning so wide my eyes curved like crescent moons. I stared at the photo for a long time, then gently tossed it into the trash. Some dreams have to end. The next morning, Zhang Wai Shui called me. I left some documents at the house. "Bring them to the office for me." Her voice still carried that husky, just woken up rasp. So casual, as if nothing had happened last night at all. After 2 seconds of silence, "Sure." When I arrived at the office, the elevator doors slid open. I ran into Gui Zhan stepping out with an elegant lunchbox in hand. Gui Zhan smiled warmly. "I'm bringing Wai Shui lunch. Want to come up?" I said nothing, just followed him silently into the office. Zhang Wai Shui was reviewing documents. When she saw us walk in together, her brow furrowed slightly. "Why are you both here?" Ran into each other downstairs. Gui Zhan smiled as he opened the lunchbox. The sharp, spicy aroma immediately filled the room. I got your favorite, spicy hot pot. My expression shifted abruptly. She has a sensitive stomach. She can't eat spicy food. Zhang Weishui glanced at me, then picked up her chopsticks. Every once in a while is fine. She lifted a piece of beef glistening with red oil. Her face perfectly composed, and ate it without hesitation. Before long, beads of sweat dotted Zhang Weishui's forehead. The fingers holding her pen trembled faintly. Gui Zan asked worriedly, Weishui, are you feeling okay? Zhang Weishui forced a smile. I'm fine. I still have work to do. You two should head out. I looked at her for a long moment, then silently placed her medication on the desk before turning to leave. Heading down to the lobby. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Her stomach condition is serious. Next time, maybe pay more attention to what you bring her. Gui Zan suddenly laughed. Ji Yu Nan Chao, do you still not understand your place? To Wai Shui, you're just a brother, slightly more special than most, maybe. So you need to remember that. But I'm different. She loves me, so I don't need to worry about those things. He stepped closer, his lips curling into a smirk. Even if I gave her poison, she'd drink it, understand? I knew Gui Zan wasn't wrong. That evening, when Zhang Weishui came home, her face was terrifyingly pale. I was pouring water in the kitchen. When I heard movement, I turned around. The glass in my hand nearly slipped from my grip. My voice came out tight. You didn't take your medication? Zhang Weishui collapsed onto the sofa, completely drained. Her bangs were soaked through with cold sweat. It got so bad, I had to go to the hospital and get my stomach pumped. Hearing that, I poured her a glass of warm water. I crouched down and gently massaged her stomach. Zhang Weishui finished the water, feeling the soothing comfort of my hands, and finally began to relax a little. She drowsily leaned against my shoulder and drifted off to sleep, just like countless times before. But this time, I didn't linger over her face. I carefully laid her down on the sofa, tucked the blanket around her, and without looking back, I headed upstairs. The next morning when I woke up, Zhang Weishui took me to Gui Zan's art exhibition. In the end, she bought every single painting. Gui Zan shot me a smug glance. No matter how long I was gone, I'm the only one in her heart. He lowered his voice, his lips nearly brushing my ear. If you still haven't woken up yet, I don't mind making it even clearer for you. The moment he finished speaking, the fire alarm suddenly blared. Fire. Everyone evacuate now. The crowd erupted into chaos. I was shoved and jostled by the stampede. My ankle twisted hard. The pain was so sharp my vision darkened. I struggled to get up, only to see Zhang Weishui fighting against the current, rushing back inside. Gui Zan, where are you? Her voice carried a panic I'd never heard from her before. A moment later, she found Gui Zan, frozen in fear. She grabbed his hand tightly, and without a backward glance, bolted for the exit. I fought with everything I had to stand. Then suddenly, crash, a burning beam collapsed and came crashing down. When I came to, blinding white light flooded my vision. Shui, you're finally awake. Tan Hao rushed to my bedside, his bloodshot eyes brimming with relief. God, you scared the hell out of me. Do you have any idea you almost died? I struggled to move my neck. Every bone in my body felt like it had been taken apart and reassembled wrong. Everything ached. I rasped out, where's Zhang Weishui? Tan Hao's expression immediately soured. She's taking care of Gui Zan. You've got a broken rib. But Mr. Gui over there just scraped his skin a little. Apparently that requires round-the-clock care. I closed my eyes. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. Tan Hao frowned, unable to hide his anger. Shui, she's recovered now, but she's never once mentioned being with you. How long are you going to keep torturing yourself like this? After a long silence, I finally spoke. I already applied for a visa. Once it comes through, I'm leaving. The moment I said it, the hospital room door slammed open. Zhang Weishui stood in the doorway, her face dark. Who's leaving? I dropped my gaze, avoiding Zhang Weishui's questioning stare. It's nothing. Tan Hao has something to take care of. He's leaving early. Tan Hao looked like he wanted to say something but held back, glancing at me. In the end, he said nothing. Just shot Zhang Wai Shui one last withering glare. Shui, if you need anything, call me immediately. Once the door clicked shut, Zhang Wai Shui finally approached the bed. Her voice carried a note of apology. There were so many people. I didn't see you. I calmly cut her off. It's okay. Then reached for the glass of water on the nightstand. I sat up slightly. My hospital gown shifted open a bit, revealing an ugly burn scar beneath my collarbone. Zhang Wai Shui's pupils constricted. How did you get hurt this badly? I thought you just inhaled some smoke? I glanced down, then casually pulled my collar back into place. It's nothing. Zhang Wai Shui frowned. I didn't know you were hurt this badly. I thought you just passed out from smoke inhalation. I forced a smile, then simply lowered my head and took a sip of water. Zhang Wai Shui suddenly said, "Let me take care of you these next few days." I shook my head. No need. You're busy. Don't worry about me. Zhang Wai Shui started to say something, but her phone suddenly rang. Wai Shui. Guizhan's voice on the other end sounded pitiful. My hand hurts so much. The doctor says the wound might be infected. Zhang Wai Shui's expression immediately wavered. I looked at her, the corner of my mouth lifting slightly. Go ahead. Zhang Wai Shui held the phone, frowning. I'm not very good at taking care of people. I'll hire a nurse to look after you. I nodded. Okay. After Zhang Wai Shui hurried out, the hospital room finally fell quiet again. I stared at the ceiling and suddenly laughed. The day I was discharged, Zhang Wai Shui came to pick me up herself. There's an auction tonight. Come with me. She handed me a new cashmere coat she just bought. I reflexively tried to refuse. Zhang Wai Shui assumed I was still angry. Her brow furrowed slightly. I really didn't see you back there. As soon as I realized you hadn't gone out, I immediately sent people in to find you. I opened my mouth, then silently accepted the coat. Once in the car, I discovered Guizhan was there too. Zhang Wai Shui offered a vague explanation. Guizhan wanted to come, so I figured we'd all go together. The entire drive, Guizhan chatted enthusiastically with Zhang Wai Shui, reminiscing about their childhood, swapping stories about studying abroad. Though Zhang Wai Shui didn't say much, every response flowed naturally. I watched the scenery blur past the window, silent as an outsider. At the auction, any item Guizhan lingered on for more than a moment, Zhang Wai Shui would raise her paddle and buy it for him. Her lavish spending quickly drew the attention of everyone around us. Isn't that CEO Zhang? I heard her boyfriend took care of her for 3 years. They must really be in love. Amid the murmurs, someone mistook Guizhan for me. Wait, that's not right. That guy doesn't look like the Mr. Gu from the news. That's the guy who abandoned CEO Zhang years ago. Zhang Wai Shui froze when she heard that. Only then did she seem to remember something, turning to me. What do you want? Just then, a pair of sapphire cufflinks appeared on the auction stage. Under the lights, they gleamed like the deep, endless light of the ocean. My gaze lingered on them for just a second longer. Zhang Wai Shui immediately raised her paddle. 10 million. Guizhan suddenly spoke up. These cufflinks have quite the history. They were a gift from a foreign princess. To her lover, a token of devotion. They symbolize loyalty and love until death. He looked at me meaningfully. They'd be perfect for Mr. Gu. Zhang Wai Shui's fingers froze. She handed them straight to Guizhan. These suit you better. Guizhan feigned hesitation. That doesn't seem right. Wasn't this what Mr. Gu had his eye on? Pick something else for him. Zhang Wai Shui looked at me. What do you want? I lowered my gaze, a self-mocking smile tugging at my lips. A gift symbolizing loyalty couldn't be given to me, but it could be given to Guizhan. I said quietly, I don't need anything. After the auction ended, guests began trickling out, while Zhang Wai Shui was surrounded by people making small talk. Guizhan seized the opportunity to approach me. He lowered his voice. Gu Nan Chao. You should see it clearly by now, right? The person Wai Shui loves is me. Clinging to her like this only annoys her more. I looked at him silently, my eyes utterly calm. You'll get what you want. Guizhan frowned. What do you mean? I didn't answer, just turned to leave. Suddenly, a scream rang out from behind me. I spun around, just in time to see Gui Zhan tumbling down the stairs. Zhang Weishui rushed over and shoved me hard. The force sent me crashing into the wall. What did Gui Zhan ever do to you? That you'd treat him like this? Her eyes were frighteningly cold. Even if you failed to protect me all those times before, you could take it out on me. Why would you hurt him? My back pressed against the cold wall. My voice steady. I didn't do anything to Gui Zhan. Gui Zhan weakly grabbed Zhang Weishui's hand. Weishui, I wasn't careful, it has nothing to do with Mr. Gu. Zhang Weishui stared at me coldly. Don't defend him. She bent down to help Gui Zhan up. I'm done with you. Go home by yourself. I stood frozen in place, watching Zhang Weishui lead Gui Zhan away, their retreating figures disappearing in a rush. I touched the plane ticket in my pocket. 1 more week, the flight to London, would carry away all my love and all my pain. She wouldn't have to see me as a burden anymore, because very soon, this burden would vanish from her world forever. The next morning, I was woken by a commotion downstairs. The moment I descended the stairs, I discovered the living room piled high with Gui Zhan's luggage. Zhang Weishui's voice drifted over from the sitting room. Gui Zhan's parents are overseas. It's not convenient for him to stay alone. He'll be staying here for a few days. Keep your distance, and don't pull any more of your tricks. I gripped the banister, my face draining of color as I descended. I won't pull any tricks anymore. And I won't love her anymore either. During the time Gui Zhan moved in, I saw a completely unfamiliar side of Zhang Weishui. She remembered that Gui Zhan didn't eat cilantro. She'd proactively change dishes she hated the moment she saw him frown. On stormy nights, she'd run to find Gui Zhan first. The study she'd never once let me enter was now open to Gui Zhan whenever he pleased. Finally, I understood. This was what Zhang Weishui looked like when she loved someone. I thought back to the past few years. How I'd foolishly rejoiced whenever she restrained her self-destructive behavior because I was there during her episodes. Secretly celebrating, convinced it was proof she was starting to love me back. How pathetic. That day, as I passed by the study, I caught a glimpse of Gui Zhan, carelessly toying with something. I stopped, peering through the crack in the door. In Gui Zhan's hand was unmistakably the jade willow pendant Zhang Weishui's grandmother had left her. The pendant dangled precariously from his fingertips, nearly slipping off several times. My heart pounded violently as I watched. I burst in and snatched the pendant away. What are you doing? This was left to Zhang Weishui by her grandmother. How could you just? Gui Zhan yanked it back irritably. What's it to you? Then, seeing how anxious I was, he suddenly smiled maliciously. You care that much? He deliberately let go. The jade pendant hit the floor hard and shattered in two. My heart nearly stopped. That was Zhang Weishui's most precious possession. The heirloom her grandmother had placed in her hands on her deathbed. What happened? Zhang Weishui's voice came from the doorway. I looked up to see her face darkened, staring at the broken pieces on the floor. Gui Zhan spoke first, his voice full of wounded innocence. Mr. Gu broke it. I was just looking at it. He came charging in and grabbed it. Zhang Weishui's eyes instantly turned glacial. Gu Nanchao, how could you? I quietly cut her off. There's a camera in the study. You can see what really happened. The air suddenly froze. Gui Zhan's expression shifted. He immediately backtracked reluctantly. I'm sorry, Weishui. I was the one who dropped it by accident. Does it mean that much to you? I'll buy you another one just like it. What I didn't expect was for Zhang Weishui's anger to instantly evaporate. She rushed to Gui Zhan's side and grabbed his hand. Are you hurt? I stood there, watching Zhang Weishui carefully inspect Gui Zhan's fingers. My heart crushed inch by agonizing inch. No one understood better than I did what that jade pendant meant to Zhang Weishui. After that day, I barely left my room. Until that evening, during dinner, Gui Zhan suddenly clutched his stomach and cried out in pain. His face went deathly pale as he collapsed into Zhang Weishui's arms. What's wrong? Zhang Wai Shui panicked, immediately calling her private physician. After the examination, the doctor's expression was grave. He's been poisoned. The entire villa erupted into chaos. The housekeepers stood trembling off to the side. The head butler began interrogating everyone about the dinner preparation process. One young maid hesitantly spoke up. I saw Mr. Gu put something in the soup. Zhang Wai Shui's gaze immediately turned to ice. She strode over and stood before me, gripping my wrist hard. The force felt like she wanted to crush my bones. Just because of a jade pendant. You tried to kill Guizhan? Gu Nan Chao. How did you become like this? My voice was barely a whisper. I didn't do it. Zhang Wai Shui's face was stone cold. Still denying it? Then she turned to the staff. Bring out the rest of the soup. My pupils contracted. What are you planning to do? Zhang Wai Shui grabbed my chin. Her voice ice cold. To teach you a lesson you'll never forget. So you'll know from now on what you should and shouldn't do. The staff brought out the remaining soup. Under Zhang Wai Shui's orders, they forced it down my throat. I struggled with everything I had, but 2 security guards held me down. The warm soup was forced into my throat. I choked and coughed violently. The poison worked fast. The pain brought me to my knees. Cold sweat instantly drenched my back. Zhang Wai Shui didn't spare me a single glance, staying at Guizhan's bedside the entire time, carefully helping him drink water, gently wiping the sweat from his forehead with a damp cloth. Her eyes were so tender they could melt. Guizhan weakly grasped her hand. Wai Shui, Mr. Gu, Zhang Wai Shui gently scolded him. Don't defend him, just rest. My consciousness began to fade. The excruciating pain made my vision go dark. The last thing I remembered was being roughly hoisted into an ambulance. I spent the entire night in the hospital. Not a single person came to visit. When I returned to the villa the next day, the entire house was empty. My phone buzzed. It was a photo from Guizhan. Under a clear blue sky. Zhang Wai Shui had her arm around Guizhan's shoulders. The 2 of them beamed at the camera. I silently locked the screen and began packing my things. As I zipped up my suitcase, I suddenly realized that after 3 years of living here, I had so little to show for it. A single 24-inch suitcase held every trace of my existence. I'd never truly belonged here. Just like I'd never truly entered her heart. Have you learned your lesson? Zhang Wai Shui's voice suddenly came from behind me. I turned to find her standing in the doorway in a black suit. Her brow slightly furrowed, scrutinizing me. I said quietly, I've learned. My mistake was loving you. My mistake was holding on to you all these years. Zhang Wai Shui's face went pale. Good that you know. Change and come to the party. I froze slightly at her words. Zhang Wai Shui's frown deepened, her voice carrying a note of disbelief. You forgot today is my birthday? Only then did it hit me. Oh, right. Today is her birthday. In past years at this time, I'd have the cake ready. The gift carefully chosen. Every detail arranged by my own hands. I'd remember her favorite foods. Remember the decorations she hated. Remember every single one of her birthday wishes. But now I'd forgotten. I said quietly, you go ahead. I'll change. And get the gift ready, then come later. Wai Shui. Guizhan's voice rang out from downstairs, carrying an unmistakable territorial claim. Everyone's waiting for you. Zhang Wai Shui nodded, giving me one last look. Hurry up. Then she turned and left. Her footsteps faded into the distance. I stood there, watching her silhouette disappear down the hallway. A self-mocking smile ghosted across my lips. Zhang Wai Shui, my birthday gift to you, is disappearing from your world forever, making you whole with Guizhan, and finally setting myself free. I grabbed my already packed suitcase. One last time, I looked around the place I'd called home for 3 years. Then, without looking back, I walked away. The airport buzzed with travelers. I stood at the boarding gate, pulling out my phone. I sent one final message to Zhang Wai Shui. Zhang Wai Shui. I'm leaving. I wish you and Guizhan a deep and lasting love. May you have a lifetime of happiness. Then I powered off my phone and walked through the gate. 3 years of devotion, waking up in a single morning. From here on, mountains high and waters far, we'll never meet again. Meanwhile, at the most luxurious hotel in the capital, the Zhang family was first-tier elite, the heir to the Zhang Corporation. Zhang Weishui's birthday party naturally attracted attention. The guests in attendance were all prominent figures in their circles. And yet, the woman at the center of it all seemed distracted. The ones who noticed something was off were Zhang Weishui's close friends. This is weird, isn't it? Why hasn't Ji Yunan Chao shown up yet? Don't tell me he forgot? How could he? All these years, when have we ever seen Ji Yunan Chao forget anything about Weishui? True, but the party's almost over. This is the first time Ji Yunan Chao's been this late. They exchanged glances. Finally, all eyes landed on Zhang Weishui. Seeing her so absent-minded, Vivian finally couldn't hold back. She cautiously spoke up. Weishui, maybe you should call Ji Yunan Chao and check in? Hearing them, Zhang Weishui reflexively shook her head. No need, he's just preparing the gift. She said it so matter-of-factly that though the others still felt something was strange, they ultimately let it go. Maybe they really were just overthinking it. Just then, the party reached the gift-giving portion. Vivian and the other friends gave their presents one by one. Soon it was Gui Zan's turn. Though Vivian and the others despised how Gui Zan had abandoned Zhang Weishui that year and disappeared, today was still Zhang Weishui's birthday party. In the end, they said nothing until he held up with both hands the gift he'd personally prepared. Weishui, this is. But before he could finish, Zhang Weishui glanced at her phone, and her expression changed completely. In front of everyone, she shoved the person in front of her aside and bolted outside. Gui Zan, caught off guard, was knocked to the ground. The sharp pain twisted his expression. He instinctively tried to call out to Zhang Weishui, but the woman who'd always put him first didn't even spare him a glance this time. She ran straight out of the banquet hall. For a moment, everyone just stared at each other, bewildered by what had just happened. Vivian and the others were equally thrown by this sudden turn. Then someone thought of me, the one who still hadn't appeared. Their expression shifted. Could something have happened to Ji Yunan Chao? The moment those words left their lips, everyone began to worry. They rushed out after her, leaving only Gui Zan sprawled on the floor. When he heard that last comment, his fists clenched in fury. Zhang Weishui ran at full speed back to the villa. The villa had long been empty of any trace of life. But she refused to give up. Rushing upstairs, searching every possible place. But there was nothing. Not only had I vanished, gone with me was every single thing connected to me. She stood dazed in the empty room, staring at the message that had arrived not long ago, and the number displayed beneath it. After a long moment, as if suddenly remembering, she pressed the number to call. Even she didn't realize that as she dialed, her hands were trembling uncontrollably. The dial tone rang endlessly in her ear, turning her heart into a chaotic mess. When I didn't answer and the call disconnected automatically, the doorbell rang just in time. She didn't even know how she made it downstairs to open the door. Finding Vivian and the others waiting anxiously outside, inside her chest, everything felt unreal. Weishui, why did you suddenly leave like that? Did something happen to Ji Yunan Chao? She tried to ignore the strange, bitter ache in her chest. After a long silence, she finally spoke. Ji Yunan Chao said he's gone. Vivian froze. Gone? Where? The worry on the others' faces was clear. None of them had ever considered the possibility that I would leave. Over the years, they'd watched Zhang Weishui go through hell after that accident, enduring the ups and downs. And they'd seen people come and go from her side. Even back then, when they themselves saw how volatile Zhang Weishui had become, they didn't have the courage to stay by her side forever. From beginning to end, there was only me. When she was at her lowest, I came to her side and gave her the greatest patience and tolerance. No matter how she lashed out or screamed, I never once thought about leaving. So why now, so suddenly? Just then, her phone rang again, almost reflexively. Zhang Weishui answered. Ji Yunan Chao, where are you? But before she could finish, Gui Zan's voice came through. Wai Shui, I twisted my ankle. Can you take me to the hospital? If this had been before, Zhang Wai Shui would have rushed over immediately. But perhaps because of my sudden departure, her mind was slightly scrambled, and she reflexively refused. I'm busy right now, find someone else. The moment those words left her mouth, even Vivian and the others stared at her in surprise. But seeing her distance herself from Gui Zan, they were naturally delighted. Gui Zan hadn't expected such a firm rejection either. He gritted his teeth, his expression hardening into something dark. But he still forced himself to sound understanding. Okay, did something happen to Mr. Jiyu? Is that why you're in such a rush? Only then did Zhang Wai Shui remember that in her haste, she'd shoved something, or someone, aside. After a moment's hesitation, she spoke. Wait, I'll be right there. The call ended. She turned back toward the banquet hall, leaving the others exchanging bewildered looks. At the hospital, the doctor reviewed Gui Zan's test results and handed them to Zhang Wai Shui. It's just a minor bump. Apply some ointment, rest for a few days, and you'll be fine. Zhang Wai Shui, knowing he was okay, finally relaxed. She was just about to take Gui Zan home when she turned her head and, within her line of sight, a familiar figure suddenly appeared. Her expression shifted, and without regard for Gui Zan beside her, she immediately rushed forward and grabbed the person. Perhaps because of the message she'd received earlier. When she grabbed the person in front of her, Zhang Wai Shui used all her strength, as if afraid he'd slip away again. But when she pulled the person around and saw an unfamiliar face, she realized she'd grabbed the wrong person. Suddenly grabbed by a stranger. Pain shot through the person's wrist. Their expression soured. Who are you? Let go. Dazed, she apologized. I'm sorry. Wrong person. Gui Zan had just barely suppressed the jealousy burning in his chest. He limped over to Zhang Wai Shui's side, seeing her still staring off in the direction the person had gone. Unable to help himself, he spoke up. Wai Shui, what's wrong? She shook her head, helping him back to the hospital room. Once she'd gotten him settled, she stepped back out, calling her assistant. Find out where Ji Yunan Chao went. That evening, at Mrs. Yang's request, she returned to the Zhang family estate. Just as she was trying to figure out how to explain my departure, Mrs. Zhang didn't seem at all surprised that she'd come home alone. She smiled and pulled her inside. Perfect timing. Chef Wu just finished cooking. It's your birthday today, so Chef Wu made your favorite dish especially. Give it a try. Zhang Wai Shui was led to the dining table. The moment she looked up, she discovered a strange man sitting across from her. An inexplicable unease stirred in her chest. She looked at her parents, asking calmly, Who is this? This is Uncle Yi's son, Ethan Yi. After Mrs. Zhang spoke, she looked at Ethan Yi, her eyes full of affection. This is my daughter, Zhang Wai Shui. Just call her Wai Shui. Ethan Yi smiled and nodded to her parents, then turned his gaze to Zhang Wai Shui. He extended his hand. Wai Shui, you can call me Ethan. Ethan Yi naturally understood the purpose of this dinner. The Zhang and Yi families were a perfect match, and both families happened to be discussing a business partnership. This meal, beyond bringing the two families closer, also carried the intention of a marriage alliance. Ethan Yi knew Zhang Wai Shui had two men in her life, but he paid it no mind. Zhang Wai Shui quickly understood her mother's intentions. Her expression darkened. She stared at his outstretched hand, and never returned the gesture. The air grew tense. Mrs. Zhang laughed to smooth things over, pulling Ethan Yi back to his seat. Wai Shui's been like this since she was little. Don't take it personally. Once you get to know her, she'll warm up. Ethan Yi's expression stiffened slightly, but in the end, he said nothing. A princess naturally has her own temperament, especially after what she's been through. Her parents had planned to let them get acquainted first, then gradually spend time together. They hadn't expected Zhang Wai Shui to be so uncooperative. Ethan Yi tried to initiate conversation. She stayed silent. When Mrs. Zhang picked up the thread, she'd deflect with random remarks. Her attitude remained dismissive from start to finish. The entire time, Zhang Weishui acted as if Ethan Yi didn't exist. At first, he could tolerate it. But seeing this, even someone with the best temperament finally reached his limit. He suddenly stood and walked out. Mrs. Zhang, I can see Miss Zhang has no intention of continuing this conversation. Let's just leave it at that. The dinner ended on a sour note. Mrs. Zhang somewhat helplessly escorted Ethan Yi out of the Zhang estate, then returned and shot Zhang Weishui an irritated look. What were you thinking? I called you home for dinner. And this is how you act? Even after Ethan Yi had left, Zhang Weishui still hadn't looked up once. She just ate her own food. Hearing her parents speak, she replied indifferently, "When you called me home, you didn't mention any of this." Mrs. Yang's voice was full of reproach. Our families are working on a partnership. I just thought it would be nice for you two to be friends. But seeing her daughter's cold expression, she could only sigh. Fine. Since you don't like him, I'll look for someone else. But the moment those words left her mouth, Zhang Weishui set down her chopsticks. Don't bother. I won't go. Mrs. Zhang sighed at that. Weishui, it's not that I'm trying to pressure you, but you need to settle down eventually. I know you still haven't gotten over Guizhan, but that man, Weishui, don't forget that when you had your accident, he was the first one to cut ties with you. Hearing her parents mention Guizhan, she should have defended him. But when the words came out, they somehow became something else entirely. What about Ji Yunan Chao? Before, didn't you always want him as your son-in-law? Hearing my name again, Mrs. Zhang froze. Her answer nearly escaped her lips. Ji Yunan Chao? Didn't he already go abroad? Hearing that, Zhang Weishui's expression changed completely. She suddenly stood and stared at Mrs. Zhang. What do you mean by that? Perhaps not expecting her reaction to be so intense, Mrs. Yang's eyes immediately became evasive, and her words began to stumble. What do I mean? You must have misheard. With that, she turned and hurried to leave. But Zhang Weishui moved even faster. In a flash, she'd blocked Mrs. Yang's path. She stood in the woman's way completely, not saying a word, but firmly refusing to let her pass. Mrs. Zhang even felt that, if she didn't explain, her daughter would stand there confronting her forever. Suddenly, irritation flared in her chest. He was just some poor kid. Why should she have to treat her own daughter like this, with such pressure? Fine, yes, he went abroad. So what? Zhang Weishui looked at her mother's expression, then thought back to her mother's strange behavior today. How could she not understand what had happened? Her face darkened. Where did you send him? Hearing that, Mrs. Yang's expression soured as well. She walked over to the dining table and sat down. Her attitude relaxed and composed. She glanced at her daughter, seeing her dark expression, and smiled. Weishui, don't make it sound so harsh. What do you mean? Where did I send him? He's a living person. What could I possibly do to him? He's just a poor kid, with no background or status. If the Zhang family hadn't sponsored his education back then, who knows where he'd be now? Now he's not only finished school, but he has the opportunity to go abroad. He should know when to be grateful. Thankfully, he had the sense to agree quickly. Zhang Weishui had never imagined the truth would be like this. She'd guessed that Mrs. Zhang had intervened to make me leave, but she hadn't thought I'd left willingly. Her face immediately went pale. That's impossible. After all, she was her own daughter. Seeing how deeply wounded she was, Mrs. Yang's tone softened. She tried to comfort her. Weishui, if they can leave you so easily, it proves they were never meant for you. You're the sole heir to the Zhang Corporation. Men lining up to marry you would stretch for miles. Why keep wasting your time on those two? After leaving the Zhang estate, Zhang Weishui headed straight to the capital's largest nightclub. In the private room, Zhang Weishui drank glass after glass in sorrow. Empty bottles piled up in front of her. From drinking too much, her consciousness had already begun to blur. Vivian watched Zhang Weishui like this, wanting to speak but not daring to. After a long while, she finally spoke up. Weishui, Drink less. The doctor said you shouldn't drink so much. The others chimed in with their own warnings. But from start to finish, no one dared mention my name. Their words of concern came one after another. But Zhang Weishui, glass in hand, showed no reaction. She just kept drinking, one glass after another, as if she couldn't hear them at all. Vivian was out of options. She could only take out her phone and call a number. Gui Zhan was somewhat surprised to receive the call. After all, since he'd returned to the States, he could sense that Vivian's group didn't approve of him. He naturally knew where their disapproval came from, but he'd never paid attention to such things. As long as Zhang Weishui didn't care, those trivial matters. What did other people and their opinions have to do with him? After waiting a moment, and seeing that the other end hadn't hung up, he finally answered, "What is it? Is something wrong? Weishui is drunk. Come talk some sense into her." Hearing it was about Zhang Weishui, Gui Zhan rushed over immediately. By the time he arrived at the room, she'd been passed out drunk for a while. Seeing the table covered in empty bottles, even he was startled. He reflexively asked, "What happened? Why did she drink so much?" The others shrugged. No one dared to say. What were they supposed to tell him? That with the person currently here, possibly the only one who could convince. Zhang Weishui. She was like this, because of another man? Fortunately, Gui Zhan didn't think too much about it. Seeing her drunk to this extent, worry dominated his thoughts. He stepped forward, and gently shook Zhang Weishui awake. "Weishui, how are you feeling?" A man's voice reached her ears. She drowsily opened her eyes. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't see clearly the face of the person speaking. She just inexplicably felt the sensation was familiar. So when he drew closer, Zhang Weishui didn't refuse, letting him hold her. "She's had way too much to drink. Let me take her home first." Gui Zhan took it upon himself to carry her home. Lifting her up, Vivian and the others nodded quickly, immensely relieved to pass off this hot potato. They watched the two figures leave the room. Zhang Weishui woke up the next day. Bright sunlight streamed through the open window, falling across her body. The hangover headache hit her with brutal force. She frowned and rubbed her temples, reflexively glancing toward the nightstand. There, as expected, sat a bowl of hangover soup. Thinking of something, joy flooded her mind. She threw off the covers and rushed out of the room. Her destination clear, toward the kitchen. She pushed open the door, and a name escaped her lips. Ji Nan Chao. Hearing that, the person's movements immediately froze. But very quickly, he recovered his composure. He turned around, pretending he hadn't heard anything. "Weishui, you're awake? There's hangover soup by the bed. Did you drink it? Actually, that one's probably cold by now. Let me ladle you a fresh bowl." With that, he turned back and ladled out a bowl of hangover soup. He smiled and handed it to her. Zhang Weishui glanced at it. Then after a moment's silence, accepted it. Seeing her take it, Gui Zhan's eyes filled with hope. He asked, "How is it?" After drinking the bowl of hangover soup, the headache did ease somewhat. But she always felt the taste was slightly off. Different from before, when she'd drunk too much, and I'd made her hangover soup. Thinking of my name. She fell silent again for a moment. Finally, she nodded. "It's good." The moment the words left her lips, they both lapsed into silence again. Just as Gui Zhan was about to say something, she suddenly spoke up. "Your parents must be back in the States by now, right?" Her question came out of nowhere. Gui Zhan didn't even have time to understand what she meant, before he was already nodding. "They came back 3 days ago." A moment later, he heard her say, "Before, I said you could stay. Because no one was home. Since your parents are back, you should move out today. I'll have someone take you home in a bit." With that, she turned and left, not bothering to look back at his reaction. Weishui. Unfortunately, Gui Zhan had no intention of letting her leave like that. Seeing that she wouldn't even turn around, he stepped forward and grabbed her hand. "Weishui, what do you mean by that? Are you kicking me out?" His expression was panicked, his grip unconsciously tightening. Feeling the pressure on her wrist, Zhang Weishui frowned with displeasure. She pulled her wrist free, her voice growing more irritated. You never should have come here in the first place. The words came out so cold, so final, that the moment they landed, both of them froze. In an instant, Zhang Weishui saw Gui Zan's eyes turn red. I'm sorry. I'll leave right now. With that, he turned and ran out of the room. Zhang Weishui reflexively wanted to stop him, but halted the motion just as her hand rose. Watching Gui Zan's retreating figure, she opened her mouth, but in the end said nothing. Time flew by. 3 years later, at the capital airport, a plane left white contrails across the sky, quickly circling to prepare for landing. Inside the crowded arrivals hall, I wore a thin dress shirt. Among the crowd bundled in layers around me, I stood out rather conspicuously. I dragged my heavy suitcase, following the flow of people out of the airport, muttering under my breath the whole time. Is summer in the capital always this cold? I need to find somewhere to change clothes fast. The woman beside me heard my words, and immediately burst out laughing. As she spoke, she didn't forget to take off her own coat and drape it over my shoulders. I told you it'd be cold this year. You didn't believe me. Now you know, don't you? The coat carried her body heat, enveloping me completely. I opened my mouth to say something, but ultimately stayed silent. When you accept someone's kindness, you owe them. I'd let her have this one for now. Bianca Yuan smoothly took the suitcase from my hand and strode ahead. After a few steps, I suddenly stopped. I need to use the restroom. Wait for me a second. With that, I turned and headed toward the bathroom. When I came out, I discovered there was someone new outside. She wore a black coat, leaning against the wall as if waiting for someone. I didn't think much of it, just glanced over and was about to leave. But the moment I moved, that person suddenly stirred. She turned around, revealing a face I knew all too well. It was Zhang Weishui. I knew it was you. Zhang Weishui looked at me, her eyes carrying something I couldn't quite understand. She didn't come closer, just stood there blocking my path. After a long silence, she finally spoke again. Just now I saw someone rush past. They looked so familiar. So I came to check. How have you been these past few years? Honestly, I didn't really understand why she was waiting for me here. But hearing her question, after a moment's hesitation, I nodded. Pretty good. That year, I went to England alone. A stranger in a foreign land, and the money I'd brought wasn't much either. At first, it was genuinely hard. But fortunately, I met Bianca Yuan. She was my landlord, and later became my confidant, my girlfriend. It was quite a coincidence, really. When I was worried about work and housing, Bianca Yuan appeared just like that. She was also American. Years ago, she'd followed her father abroad to England. After several years of hard work, she even had her own private practice. I'd initially only wanted to rent for a short time, promising her 3 times over that once I found work, I'd move out immediately. But a few days later, we happened to talk about our hometowns, only to discover we were even from the same area. She'd even been my senior at school, 3 years ahead of me. It was just that later, Bianca Yuan had followed her father overseas, while I, in order to care for Zhang Weishui, had voluntarily given up continuing my studies. Otherwise, back when we were still in the States, we would have known each other already. But fate works in mysterious ways. We'd missed meeting the first time, only to reconnect in England. And she was the one who extended a helping hand when I needed it most, giving me a place to stay. After that, I became a therapist at her practice. Because of my relationship with Bianca Yuan, I had significant autonomy and freedom at the clinic. When I'd become disconnected from society, lacking confidence, from caring for Zhang Weishui, it was she who encouraged me, bit by bit, to take that brave first step forward. After that, we came to know, understand, and love each other. Zhang Weishui looked at me, lost in thought. A faint smile curved my lips. Emotions kept surging inside her chest, as if something was about to shatter. After a long silence, she stepped closer to me, raising her hand as if to reach out. But in the end, she could only let it fall weakly. Ji Yu Nan Chao, I'm sorry. The apology came 3 years too late. But she couldn't help thinking, just 3 years. Better than never seeing him again for the rest of my life. That final apology left even me momentarily stunned. What? I reflexively asked. Only after asking did I seem to remember something. I didn't even know which thing she was apologizing for back then. So I stayed silent. Zhang Weishui, facing me, had already explained. You didn't know my mother forced you to leave. You never thought of leaving me. Before she could finish, I was already shaking my head. Cutting her off. She didn't force me to leave. She just happened to suggest I leave. When I was already planning to go. The moment those words left my mouth, Zhang Weishui only felt her heart ache even more. In the years since I'd left, she'd considered every possibility, especially after learning that my departure had involved Mrs. Yang's intervention. She couldn't help but hope that I hadn't left willingly, that I'd been forced. She'd also imagined what it would be like if we ever met again one day. Wouldn't I be happy, or would I still be angry with her? But the one thing she never imagined was that I'd left willingly. Or that when we finally met again, I'd be this cold. As if she were just someone insignificant. Her heart suddenly clenched with pain. She opened her mouth to say something, but always felt her breath catching in her throat, choking her until she couldn't speak. I was so ruthless that after all these years apart, I wouldn't even bother making up a lie to comfort her. But if she had to give up like this, Zhang Weishui couldn't accept it. You know everything that happened back then. Ji Yu Nan Chao, I'm sorry. Back then, I was too narrow-minded. Always feeling like you'd seen me at my most desperate. And I had no way to face you. I was too young then. Too naive. Thinking my pride was everything. Believing that was what you wanted. As she spoke, the corners of her eyes had already reddened. Without waiting for my response, she spoke again. And also, I only found out later how many times I wrongly accused you. I'm sorry. I was too arrogant. Always assuming what I saw was the truth. If she hadn't sent someone to help Guizhan pack up later, only for him to run off on his own, having no choice, she could only send someone to collect his belongings for him. She never expected that during that cleanup, they'd discover poison he hadn't had time to dispose of. His purchase history, and leftover poison. Only then did she realize that I truly hadn't poisoned Guizhan. And because she learned this, she went back and checked all the security footage afterward. That's when she discovered how many times she'd wronged me. Unfortunately, the truth came too late. She never got the chance to apologize to me in person. Now she'd finally waited for this opportunity. But I seemed to no longer care. I truly didn't care much anymore. The truth had come too late. I'd already passed the stage where I cared about the truth. What good would a simple apology do now? It couldn't undo the wounds I'd suffered. Couldn't give them back. Besides, so many years had already passed. I didn't want to let momentary pain trap me forever. Miss Zhang, is there anything else? If not, I really need to go. My girlfriend's still waiting for me outside. The moment the word, girlfriend, left my lips, Zhang Weishui felt like lightning had struck her. Then crashed down. You have a girlfriend? As if she couldn't understand why her reaction was so intense. I nodded again with certainty, feeling there was nothing to hide. My girlfriend wasn't someone to be ashamed of. Pausing, I suddenly seemed to remember something, and looked at Zhang Weishui again. Oh, right, we're back this time to prepare for the wedding. But after that, we probably won't be coming back. If you'd like to attend, you're more than welcome. The moment I finished speaking, a voice called my name from the distance. I looked up, and sure enough, saw Bianca Yuan. Weishui, why are you taking so long in the bathroom? I've been waiting outside so long the flowers are wilting. Halfway through, Bianca Yuan finally noticed Zhang Weishui beside me. A flash of surprise crossed her eyes. Weishui, who is this? I didn't pretend not to know her. I introduced them straightforwardly. This is the CEO of Zhang Corporation, Zhang Weishui. She's from the Zhang family I told you about, the ones who sponsored my education. Pausing, I turned to look at Zhang Weishui. This is Bianca Yuan. She's my girlfriend. Simple introductions. But they pierced Zhang Weishui twice over. She never could have imagined that one day she'd hear from my own lips that she was just someone from the Zhang family who'd once sponsored me. And that woman named Bianca Yuan shattered the last fragment of her hope. Before Bianca Yuan appeared, she could still comfort herself, thinking maybe the girlfriend I mentioned was just a random excuse because I was angry. But from the moment Bianca Yuan appeared, she could no longer deceive herself, whether from my unconscious movements, drawing closer to Bianca Yuan, or from how, when I made introductions, I placed her in a more respectful position, while placing Bianca Yuan in a more intimate one. It was all clear. Even if we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend, our relationship was certainly far from simple. CEO Zhang, I've admired your reputation for quite some time. Hearing Zhang Weishui's name, a faint smile curved Bianca Yen's lips, though the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Before, she'd only heard me mention that I'd been born in a poor town, where my parents didn't value education, and hadn't even waited for me to finish middle school before forcing me to come home to farm and start a family. Fortunately, I'd met the Zhang couple back then. They'd rescued me from dire straits and sponsored me through college. At the time, she'd never imagined that the Zhang family who'd sponsored me was the same Zhang family of Zhang Corporation. So she'd never connected the person who'd selflessly cared for the paralyzed heir of Zhang Corporation for years, only to be used and discarded, that poor student, with each other. She looked at the shock and pain in Zhang Weishui's eyes, and in an instant understood what must be going through Zhang Weishui's mind right now. Seeing that Zhang Weishui still hadn't responded, she suddenly smiled and extended her hand to Zhang Weishui. I should really thank CEO Zhang for giving up such a treasure. The gratitude was sincere. After all, if not for Zhang Weishui and the Zhang family not knowing how to cherish what they had, with how I'd struggled and worked my way through school to escape my original family, willing to care for Zhang Weishui without hesitation, choosing to give up the career within my grasp to look after Zhang Weishui. If Zhang Weishui back then had just said one sentence, "Let's get married," perhaps none of this would have come to pass today. The air between the two women immediately grew taut as a bowstring. I looked between them, finally making cursory goodbyes, before leading Bianca Yuan away. Only after we'd walked some distance did I look at Bianca Yuan with mild curiosity. "You were really strange today." She feigned ignorance, joking, "Strange how?" "You're seeing things." The suitcase wheels rolled across the floor, making clicking sounds. I thought it over carefully, then figured out where this strange feeling came from, and immediately found it amusing. "Why are you jealous of her?" Seeing my genuinely indifferent expression, Bianca Yuan grew even more dissatisfied. "She and her family treated you like that. You really don't resent them at all?" "I just see them as benefactors." The two of us walked and talked, not noticing there was another figure following behind us the entire time, clearly hearing our conversation. Then, hearing that line, she froze completely in place. Just benefactors. Zhang Weishui suddenly remembered 3 years ago, when friends had thrown a party to celebrate her recovery. At the party, they'd mentioned how I'd cared for her all those years. Now that Weishui has completely recovered, Ji Yunan Chao's suffering has finally paid off. He's finally seen the light. "When are you planning to marry him?" Hearing that, her expression had suddenly turned cold. "What are you talking about? I only see him as a brother." Thinking back now, not long after she'd said those words, I'd pushed open the door and walked in. Looking back, I must have heard it. Back then, she just felt that the years of paralysis had made her too desperate, too lost. She felt she should be a radiant princess, an existence everyone admired, without any flaws. So she deliberately avoided that time of paralysis, and also deliberately distanced herself from me, the person tied to that period. She'd arrogantly thought that as long as she acknowledged that debt, and gave me enough money, enough respect, I should be grateful and accept it. When she'd said those words back then, she'd never once considered how painful they'd be for me to hear. Not until now. when she heard a similar phrase. I just see them as benefactors. Wasn't this exactly what she deserved? She smiled bitterly, lowering her head, and pulled from her coat pocket a small velvet box. With a soft click, the contents were fully revealed. A pair of diamond wedding rings, engraved inside with both our initials. This was something she'd had specially commissioned. After realizing her feelings for me, she didn't know when she'd see me again. So she'd always carried it with her, hoping that one day, she could slip it onto my ring finger herself. She'd finally waited for the day we'd meet again. But these rings never even had a chance to see the light of day. The wedding invitation from Bianca Ewan and me arrived at Jong Corporation 3 days later, just when Vivian and the others happened to be there. The assistant walked in with the invitation, and Vivian and the others froze for a moment before passing it along, asking them to forward it. Looking at the red card, they exchanged glances, and ultimately couldn't resist opening it. They even justified it to themselves. It's fine. It's just an invitation, not like it's classified information. But when they opened it and saw the names inside, everyone present couldn't help but gasp. Ji-Yu Nan Chao. Was it the Ji-Yu Nan Chao they were thinking of? Just then, a voice suddenly rang out. What are you all doing? Zhang Wai-shui had just emerged, to find everyone gathered around the desk. Flustered and not knowing what to do, she immediately frowned. Her voice suddenly rang out behind them, startling everyone. They reflexively hid something behind their backs, forcing smiles. Nothing at all. Before the words were finished, Vivian felt her hands go empty. She turned to look, and sure enough, the invitation in her hand had vanished. Looking again, red appeared in Zhang Wai-shui's hands, the very invitation they'd been hiding. Before they could stop her, Zhang Wai-shui had already opened it. Seeing the two names, Ji-Yu Nan Chao, Bianca Ewan, then she looked at the wedding date on the invitation, October 21st. Her lips moved, but she said nothing. Yet everyone present shivered involuntarily, feeling the temperature around them drop considerably. Clearly, she was not pleased. We have things to do, we'll head out. Seeing her like this, no one dared stay. They all found excuses to leave. In the end, only Vivian remained. A moment later, she saw Zhang Wai-shui produce a small box. Isn't this? Vivian had first seen this ring box 3 years ago. Occasionally, she'd catch Zhang Wai-shui taking it out, caressing it as if remembering someone. And who that person was didn't need to be said. When did Ji-Yu Nan Chao come back to the States? She stared at the invitation, always feeling something was off. After a long silence, Zhang Wai-shui smiled bitterly. 3 days ago, I ran into him at the airport. Hearing that, Vivian's eyes widened. You saw him 3 days ago? And he sent the invitation 3 days later? His intention to cut ties couldn't be clearer. Pausing, she asked again. What did you say to him? Why would? Before she could finish, Zhang Wai-shui was already shaking her head. He said he came back this time to get married. The moment those words left her mouth, Vivian also fell silent, wanting to speak several times. But in the end, it all turned into a sigh. What else could she say? The bottom line was that back then, Zhang Wai-shui had broken my heart herself. Though mentioning it still carried a trace of regret. After all, back then, they'd all thought I would stay by Zhang Wai-shui's side. Back then, they'd all seen clearly that I loved Zhang Wai-shui. If I hadn't loved her, how could I have endured Zhang Wai-shui's temperament at its absolute worst? But just then, Zhang Wai-shui, as if suddenly making up her mind about something, said, I won't give up like this. The person I love is him. He should be mine. Who would have thought that the moment those words came out, Vivian, who had once thought we should be together, froze. After a long moment, she looked at her with complex eyes and asked, why do you have to do this? You didn't know how to treasure him back then. Now Ji-Yu Nan Chao is about to marry someone else. What's the point of getting involved in whether to let go or not? Zhang Wai-shui said firmly. There's no question of should or shouldn't. I love him. There's absolutely no way I can watch him marry someone else. Vivian was also startled by those words. still wanting to persuade her. But he already loves someone else. What can you do if he doesn't want you? The second half of that sentence was ultimately swallowed back. But Zhang Weishui, as if seeing through what she'd left unsaid, still didn't care in the slightest. She even smiled. So what? If I could make him love me once, I can make him love me a second time. Seeing she couldn't be persuaded, Vivian shook her head, sighing somewhat helplessly. In the end, she said nothing more. Fine, do what you want. But she knew Zhang Weishui would never succeed. Perhaps she still hadn't realized that I was someone who absolutely never looked back. For example, when I decided to care for the paralyzed Zhang Weishui, no matter how she'd cursed and pushed me away, I'd never once thought of giving up. Just like after she recovered. When I discovered I was being shut out, I'd quietly made plans to leave. Then silently vanished, disappearing from everyone's world. Perhaps some people always have to hit a wall before they understand that what's lost can never be found again, no matter how much you regret it. After everyone had left, Zhang Weishui whispered, Ji Yu Nan Chao. I absolutely won't give up like this. On my end, I still knew nothing about any of this. Returning home for the wedding had actually been the Yuan family's idea. Though the Yuan family had settled abroad, the Yuan elders were still back in the States, thinking about Grandpa and Grandma Yuan, who hadn't seen their granddaughter in so long, and considering all our friends were also in the States. In the end, we decided to hold the wedding back home. Wedding preparations were incredibly complicated and time-consuming. The wedding date was set soon. And during this time, we had so many things to handle. Every day we ran around everywhere, insanely busy, with absolutely no mental space to think about anything else. I'd completely forgotten about Zhang Weishui. But though I'd forgotten about Zhang Weishui hadn't forgotten about me. She even came looking for me directly. Once again cornered outside the bathroom. I just felt somewhat exhausted. It was just that this time I'd gone out alone. Not with Bianca Yuan. So she'd found an opening. It seemed that for the time I'd be in the capital. Unless absolutely necessary, I shouldn't go anywhere alone anymore. After a moment of silence, I was the one who spoke first. Is there something you need? Zhang Weishui didn't answer my question. Just looked at me, like looking at a lost treasure that had been found again. That gaze was far too obvious. So much so that I couldn't help but frown. Just as I was about to speak, I saw her raise her hand. The next moment, my vision went dark. I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I discovered I was in an incredibly familiar room. I groggily sat up, reflexively reaching for my phone. But my hand found only empty space. Before I could think it through, a knock at the door came right on cue. I stayed silent, not responding. But the person outside the door seemingly didn't wait for my answer either. Just opened the door directly. Seeing it was Zhang Weishui, I had that, just as I thought, feeling. Ji Yu Nan Chao, want to eat something? Seeing me awake, she didn't ask about why I hadn't responded earlier, and even smiled very gently, placing the food in her hands on the nearby table. I figured you'd be awake by now. You must be hungry after going so long without eating. So I brought food over. I looked at Zhang Weishui again, not expecting she'd know how to do these things. Feeling genuinely a bit hungry, I didn't bother arguing with her, simply accepting the bowl and chopsticks to eat. As if not expecting me to cooperate like this, Zhang Weishui froze, then smiled again. Seems like you adapt very quickly. All my special efforts to collect the things you used before and decorate the room like when you temporarily stayed here weren't wasted. Hearing that, I froze, quietly observing the decorations around me. Then suddenly realized, this room was the exact room I'd stayed in 3 years ago. After a moment of silence, I looked at Zhang Weishui. Why do all this? Why bring me here? And why go to all the trouble to restore the room to how it was? She still sat at a distance neither too far nor too close, the smile at the corner of her mouth never fading. Hearing my question, she reflexively pressed her lips together. After a long moment, she pulled from her chest the ring box that never left her side. Because I love you. Why Shui? I can't watch you leave me like this. She pushed the ring toward me. Her voice very soft, very light. But carrying emotions I couldn't ignore. Why Shui? Don't marry her, okay? During my most desperate time. Only you never hesitated to stay by my side, encouraging me to step forward. I thought I could stop caring about you. But after you left, I realized I can't live without you. So why Shui, don't leave me. Don't stop wanting me. By the end, her face carried traces of anxiety and unease. I'd never imagined that one day, I'd see Zhang Wai Shui with such an expression. But hearing what she said, I couldn't help but frown. In my understanding, loving someone can't be hidden. Even before discovering your own feelings, your subconscious will instinctively protect that person. Like when I loved Zhang Wai Shui. When I heard she'd been paralyzed in a car accident and was despondent, I didn't hesitate to go to her side, even though her temperament then was impulsive and erratic, and she either hit or cursed at me. I never once thought of backing down. Just like how Bianca Yuan was with me later. Though I kept refusing and retreating, she persisted just the same, until finally moving me with her sincerity. But the time Zhang Wai Shui and I spent together, never had that feeling. Even during the final period when she was about to recover, her attitude toward me gradually shifted from initially terrible to more stable, but it was only slightly more stable. I lowered my face, hiding the emotions in my eyes, my voice calm. What about Mr. Gui? She didn't become sad because of my attitude. Hearing this, the joy in her eyes grew even clearer. Why Shui, don't worry. I can promise you, I don't love Gui Zan. From the moment I learned he threw himself down the stairs and poisoned himself to frame you, I made him pay the appropriate price. From now on, the capital will have no trace of the Gui family. I also know that in the past, I wronged you. But back then, I was just too obsessed. A teenage girl's first love. When he abandoned me during my darkest hour. I've been successful for over 20 years. Whether in academics or business partnerships. I've rarely chosen wrong. But he alone was a mistake. I always wanted to prove to him that he was wrong back then. Or erase the stain of him abandoning me. To prove I hadn't chosen the wrong person. But why Shui? It wasn't until you left that I realized I was wrong. I don't need to care about any of that. I just need you. I know I hurt you before. But now I've learned my lesson. Can you give me one more chance? She was full of desperate pleading. Hoping I would at least nod. Or at the very least, not refuse. But I looked at her. And slowly shook my head. Zhang Wai Shui, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a little girl. She always had a terrible temper. Always losing it with friends and family. Her mother gave her a board. And some nails. Telling her that whenever she got angry, she should hammer a nail into the board. The little girl obeyed. Every time she got angry, she'd hammer a nail into the board. Until much later, her mother brought the girl to stand before that board and had her pull out all the nails. All the nails were removed. But on the board, the marks where the nails had been remained forever. Zhang Wai Shui, you and I are like that girl and that board. What's done is done. It's not something you can just forget by saying so. Those marks will always exist. They can never be erased. When the story ended, they both fell silent again. Zhang Wai Shui naturally understood all this. She just didn't want to let go like this. Even if there was only a sliver of hope. She hoped I could let go of the past. And start over with her. After a long while, I was the one who broke the silence first. Can you give me my phone back? But the moment I spoke, it sent her into a panic. She quickly stood up, clearing away the leftover food on the table, and changed the subject. Since you've finished eating, I'll go now. If you feel stuffy in the room, you can go downstairs or out to the courtyard. No one will stop you. The moment she finished speaking, she'd also finished clearing the dishes, and hurried away with them. Her retreating figure even carried a hint of panicked escape. I didn't stay in the room forever. After eating, I wandered around the courtyard, testing the range of my movement. After testing, I could guess why mentioning the phone made Zhang Wai Shui flee. Because she didn't dare return it. She'd deliberately hidden it, afraid that once I woke up, I'd immediately contact someone to rescue me. So she gave me maximum freedom within the villa, but cut off all means I had of contacting the outside world. I sat by the greenhouse, gazing at the sky dyed orange by the sunset. From time to time, I'd spare a glance toward the second-floor study. Since I'd come outside, Zhang Weishui had stayed in her study. Without coming out, I truly didn't understand why she had to do this. She couldn't keep me locked up forever. Sooner or later, I'd have to leave. Why insist on doing these futile things? Zhang Weishui didn't care about how long or short the time was. She treasured the present, every chance to be by my side. By the time I'd counted the third sunset, Zhang Weishui came back again, bringing with her a pile of orchids. 2 days earlier, Zhang Weishui had asked me if there was anything I liked, and she'd bring it next time. I'd asked her for these. Actually, the capital's climate wasn't ideal for growing orchids, but with proper care and the right conditions, they could thrive. Having nothing to do for so long gave me plenty of time to care for these flowers. I personally, one by one, planted the orchids in the greenhouse, carefully tending to each bloom. Seeing that I genuinely liked them, Zhang Weishui breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you. When I'd finished everything, I turned around to see Zhang Weishui waiting by the greenhouse entrance. I smiled my thanks. She waved her hand, the smile at the corner of her lips barely contained. As long as you like them. She paused, then added, whatever you like. I'll do my best to find it for you. If this had been before, back when I still loved Zhang Weishui, I would have been moved by this. But Zhang Weishui now wasn't the Zhang Weishui of before. And I wasn't the same person either. All my love for her had died when she said she only saw me as a brother. When she fought over Gui Zhan, but didn't even spare a glance when I was shoved down the stairs. During this time staying at the villa, every day I discovered the villa resembled more and more how it had been when we lived together before. I accepted everything with a smile. She didn't say it out loud, and I just pretended not to know. Every day, I did my own thing. After she got off work and came home, she'd bring her laptop and stay in the same space as me. At meals, she'd sit beside me, diligently serving me food. There were even days when Zhang Weishui had to come home late. Worried I'd be lonely, so she'd call Vivian over to keep me company. When Vivian arrived at the villa and saw me, she finally understood. Zhang Weishui had literally locked me in the villa. A complaint almost reflexively escaped her lips. My God, has she lost her mind? Compared to her panic, I remained remarkably calm about being confined. Hearing her words, I raised an eyebrow slightly. I thought you all already knew about this. Vivian shook her head, reflexively asking, aren't you about to get married? How are you so calm? I smirked, my face expressionless, my voice carrying a hint of self-mockery. Worrying won't help. She's already confiscated all means of contacting the outside world. Besides planting flowers to kill time, there's nothing else I can do. Hearing me say that, Vivian also felt uncomfortable. She opened her mouth to say something, but couldn't get the words out. Vivian couldn't advise Zhang Weishui to let me go, nor could she promise me she'd definitely help me leave. The women who followed Zhang Weishui all had family businesses, closely tied to Zhang Corporation. They couldn't bear the consequences of angering Zhang Weishui, nor could they disregard their families for my sake. Fortunately, I hadn't expected their help anyway. I also trusted that Bianca Yuan wouldn't keep me waiting long. 2 more days passed, and it was my birthday. Zhang Weishui specifically cleared all her work. But even as she prepared the cake, she realized she knew far too little about me. She didn't even know what flavor of cake I liked. Having no choice, she could only buy every single flavor. Thinking about it, this should be the first time she'd formally celebrated my birthday. After all, before she'd been paralyzed, she'd been an arrogant princess who paid absolutely no attention to the birthday of the poor student her family sponsored. Later, when I came to her side, her paralysis had changed her temperament, and her mind was full only of how others had seen her at her most desperate. taking out her rage on me everywhere. After that, under my care and encouragement, Zhang Weishui gradually improved. She finally learned to retract her thorns and treat those around her normally. Unfortunately, back then, I wasn't among those around her. She still cared about how I'd seen her most desperate, vulnerable side, completely and entirely, maintaining only a surface harmony out of gratitude. By the time she recognized her feelings, I'd already packed my bags long ago and quietly left her side. But she comforted herself. It's okay. Even if I don't understand him well enough yet, we still have a future. I'll gradually integrate all his living habits and preferences into my life. The moment she got home, Zhang Weishui, as if showing off her achievement, laid all the gifts before me. Weishui, see if you like any of these. If not, I'll have someone buy more. Before Zhang Weishui returned, I'd prepared myself mentally in 2 ways. Whether her love for me was fake or real, I had a certain level of psychological preparation either way. But when I saw the cakes and gifts filling nearly the entire living room, I still couldn't help but freeze. Why did you buy so much? Zhang Weishui's expression shifted, her mouth opening, as if finding it somewhat difficult to say. She stammered a few words, then began deflecting. Seeing her like this, I quickly understood. During the time we'd spent together, Zhang Weishui's attention had been fixed on her paralyzed legs, on Gui Zhan who'd once abandoned her. The attention she'd spared for me had been vanishingly small, so now that she wanted to please me, she probably wasn't even clear on my preferences. I lowered my head with a faint smile, saying nothing, and randomly selected one from the pile of gifts. This one. I chose a pair of amethyst cufflinks. Not particularly eye-catching among the pile of gifts, though quite expensive in value. My gaze fell on the certificate of authenticity in the box. These cufflinks cost nearly 10 million. Among this pile of gifts, they were actually on the cheaper end. Inexplicably, I suddenly remembered myself. When I'd first arrived in England, the pitiful amount of money I'd had left, barely enough for a few meals, let alone housing. Back then, I'd been so desperate. I could only take on odd jobs to earn money, while figuring out my future path. If I'd had these cufflinks back then, even selling them at a discount, the money I'd get would have been enough for me to live comfortably for the rest of my life. Would I not have ended up with empty pockets, having to find random places to sleep, nearly getting caught up in a murder case? Fortunately, my luck wasn't terrible. Or perhaps it was because when misfortune reaches its extreme, you hit rock bottom and bounce back, allowing me, in my darkest hour, to meet the most important person of my life. Bianca Yuan, Weishui, happy birthday. Zhang Weishui's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I lowered my face, hiding all emotion in my eyes, and softly thanked her. Thank you. Just as my mind wandered, a piece of cake appeared before me. I looked up again, to see Zhang Weishui's smiling face. Weishui, between us, there's no need for such formality. This time, things were a bit rushed after all. Wait until next year. I'll definitely throw you a more suitable, more spectacular birthday party. How does that sound? I said nothing, just ate a bite of the cake. The expensive cream was smooth in my mouth, sweet without being cloying. Yet eating it, I found it tasteless. Actually, I didn't like any of these gifts. What I truly wanted was to be able to leave here and return to Bianca Yen's side. If only Bianca Yuan were here, that would be wonderful. I was starting to miss her. I wondered if she'd figured out where I was yet, if she was worrying and searching for me. When I got home, I'd definitely stay put, never going anywhere without her by my side. This was probably, since meeting Bianca Yuan, my first birthday without any anticipation. After finishing the cake, I returned to my room. Looking at the star decorations on the desk, I couldn't help feeling a bit sorry for myself. I'd clearly promised her that if we couldn't find each other, we could use something as a signal. It had been several days already. Why hadn't she come for me yet? But just as I thought that, I sighed. Forget it, never mind. Over the years, the Yuan family has kept their focus abroad. In terms of influence, they definitely can't match someone who's always been based here. Zhang Corporation. I'll wait a bit longer. But if she lets it drag past the wedding day, when I get back, I'm definitely settling accounts with her. I'd originally thought the most Zhang Wai Shui would do was keep me locked up here, trying to wear me down until my attitude softened. I hadn't expected her intentions went beyond that. With only 1 week left until the wedding, I was suddenly blindfolded and taken somewhere by Zhang Wai Shui. When the blindfold came off, I discovered the surroundings had been meticulously decorated. Countless white roses arranged into a heart. And a bit farther away, orchids spelling out, "Marry me." And before me, Zhang Wai Shui wore a wedding dress studded with 999 diamonds. Even every strand of her hair had been carefully tended. Standing around were Vivian and the others, their faces wearing stiff smiles, carrying traces of embarrassment when their eyes met mine. And surrounding me along with Zhang Wai Shui, her face was flushed, looking up at me with barely concealed nervousness. Her heart pounded violently, as if it would burst from her chest the next moment. Wai Shui, I love you. Can you give me a chance to take care of you and spend the rest of our lives together? Time seemed to stop in that moment. Zhang Wai Shui wished this instant could last just a little longer, yet also hoped for my answer to come faster. These two thoughts tangled endlessly in her mind, until the atmosphere was suddenly shattered by a commotion. She frowned with slight displeasure, standing up to ask what was happening, only to see Bianca Yuan leading a group of police officers, breaking through the circle of servants, and charging straight in. Freeze, police. After being confined for an entire week, I finally heard the voice I'd been waiting for. Almost the moment she finished speaking, I turned to look, reflexively starting to move toward Bianca Yuan. My wrist was suddenly grabbed. Wai Shui, please don't go. From the moment she saw Bianca Yuan, Zhang Wai Shui knew her stolen time was finally coming to an end. But seeing me stand without hesitation, ready to leave, her heart still couldn't avoid the pain. I turned to look at the slender hand gripping my wrist, pale and delicate, a ring adorning her ring finger, matching the one she'd given me when I first arrived at the villa. As I remained silent, both sides grew tense, afraid I wouldn't choose them. Besides Zhang Wai Shui, there was also Bianca Yuan. She was scared too, afraid that in the end I'd still choose the woman who'd claimed all my youth. But fortunately, I only paused for a moment, then pried her fingers away, one by one. I can't, Zhang Wai Shui. I already have a new life. You should live yours too. People always have to look forward, not stay trapped in the past forever. You'll only miss out on more. I left without hesitation. I walked away, and even Vivian and the others watching couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. They could all guess that if I'd truly been kept here, perhaps every day from now on would be like today, forced to accept Zhang Wai Shui's love without finding true happiness. Perhaps this was what it meant to have fate without destiny. We'd both loved each other, but never at the same frequency. When I loved her most, all she had in her mind and eyes was her own dignity. She'd even rather place all her attention on the person who'd abandoned her than spare even a little for the one beside her, the person who truly deserved her care. But after I left, she felt regret, wanting to salvage things. But in this life, no one waits forever for anyone. A week later, the wedding took place as scheduled. We hadn't invited my parents. Clearly, it was the Yuan family giving away their daughter, yet Mr. Yuan, walking across the stage, had that poignant feeling of a child leaving home. He wiped away tears and said, Wai Shui, I'm entrusting Yuan Ru to you now. The happiness in Bianca Yen's eyes nearly overflowed. She withdrew her hand from Mr. Yen's and placed it in mine. I looked at Mr. Yuan and promised, I will absolutely cherish Yuan Ru. I'll love her for the rest of my life. Then we continued with the ceremony. The smile on my face unconcealed, the officiant said, Miss Yuan, do you take Mr. Gu as your husband? Whether poor or rich, in sickness or in health, never to abandon. Your love forever true? I do. Mr. Gu, do you take Miss Yuan as your wife? Whether poor or rich, In sickness or in health. Never to abandon. Your love forever true? I gripped the hand she held in mine. A brilliant smile blooming at the corner of my lips. I do. Amid the applause, Bianca Yuan and I exchanged rings. The officiant continued. Now, the groom may kiss the bride. I lifted Bianca Yen's veil. Then drew closer and closer. My warm breath mingling with hers. Intimate and clinging. Then came a soft, tender sensation. Below the stage, Zhang Weishui watched this scene, her heart pierced with pain. As if countless needles relentlessly stabbed into her heart. Yet she didn't even have the right to cry out in pain. Because all of this was her own doing. Her own arrogance had caused her to lose the person she should have treasured most. Amid the cheers, she alone quietly slipped away. Inside the hall, guests swarmed like ants. Outside the hall, Zhang Weishui faced alone the police officers who'd come with an arrest warrant. Criminal police. Miss Zhang. We now have evidence you're involved in unlawful detention. We're placing you under arrest according to the law. Please cooperate. Zhang Weishui was silent for a moment. Then turned to look back toward the hall. They really did pick the perfect day. She nodded, not resisting, and obediently followed them into the police car. I saw Zhang Weishui again 3 months later. The two of us had finished our honeymoon and stayed at the Yuan family home, spending a long time with Grandpa and Grandma Yuan. Only when the clinic in England could no longer be delayed did we set out to return. But the moment we arrived at the airport, I saw someone I hadn't expected. She sat casually on the steps outside the terminal, a few stray cats circling around her, meowing and begging for the food in her hands. She'd occasionally pet the cats, then looked up and our eyes met directly. She scooped up a cat in one arm and slowly walked over to me. This time you're leaving for good? I nodded in answer. She lowered her head with a bitter smile. Well then, goodbye. Safe travels. Zhang Weishui watched our retreating figures gradually blend into the crowd. We wouldn't be coming back after this. And she couldn't leave the country. This goodbye was truly forever. The end.